Please join me in welcoming Mr. Tim Wise.
Mr. Wise spoke for 2 hours about his observations about race and inequality. Growing up in Nashville, Tennessee, he attended a school in a predominantly black neighborhood, and most of his teachers were black women. These early experiences allowed him to respect black authority, something he says most white people never experience. He cites this as the reason why he noticed the underlying race issues in America during his later life. Weiss emphasized that this issue of race has been ever present in America since its founding.
In some ways, the reality is, and perhaps this will make it clearer than ever, the struggle that we have today and the work that we have to do around issues of racial equity, gender equity, economic justice, etc., really isn't that different from what that struggle would have been and has been for the past 6 months, 6 years, 60 years, or several hundred years. Sometimes.
One of the major topics of Weiss's talk was the impact racism has had on historical events as well as the way Americans commonly view history. He stresses that one must understand the history of racism if we're ever to overcome it in the present.
He said, if you do not understand the predicate, if you don't understand what came before, the preface, the precursor to what you're seeing in America right now, it will not make sense to you. It will seem bizarre. You have to understand what came before. And it was a very simple statement, quite banal. He was in fact giving a talk about affirmative action. It was a very simple speech, right? He was trying to explain that if you don't understand the history of racial subordination of people of color, if you don't understand the history of white racial preference and white supremacy, right, and for that matter, male preference and male supremacy, something like affirmative action won't make sense to you, right? It'll seem weird.
Weiss also touched on certain traditional facets of American life that, he claimed, were influenced by racism, like voting representation, modern policing, and even the Pledge of Allegiance.
Before, actually, in every version, though, in the 1880s, the 1920s, and the 1950s, what's the last line? It's always the same, with liberty and justice for all. There's that word again, all, but we didn't mean it. So we're just going to have to understand when black folks say, y'all keep saying all, we don't believe you. We're going to put an asterisk at the end of the all called Black Lives Matter so you know that we're part of that, because y'all keep forgetting. And that's why it has to be said. But if you don't understand the history, right, then it doesn't make sense. I get it. If you don't understand the history, it seems absurd. If you don't understand that modern policing traces to the slave patrol system, which is inarguable, by the way. I mean, there's some stuff that I might say tonight that you could theoretically disagree with. That ain't one of them. Like, that is inarguable that modern policing traces to slave patrols.
Towards the end of his presentation, Weiss talked about how the election and tensions in the economy relate to race. He explained how American exceptionalism is a fundamentally different concept for white people than for black people, stating, white people sincerely believe that working hard is the key to success and happiness. But this is fundamentally different for people of color, who are more likely to lose a job at whim, be unemployed, and have a lower life expectancy. He stressed that these differences have led to some of the racial tension and slander during the past election season. White people, secure in their beliefs that hard work equates to success, were left feeling angry when faced with economic hardships. It was an injustice that they had not experienced before. This anger led to some ignorantly blaming minority populations for economic issues. Weiss's goal is to educate people about race to dissuade this type of thinking.
We say this stuff, we say they're taking our jobs. I got an email from a young man a couple years ago who said this, right? He emails me, and it was all capital letters, so it's never good. It's never good, ever good. Red font, oh God. And he says, I can't find a job. I hear you. I can't find a job because blacks and Mexicans are taking them all. Really? All of the jobs? Blacks and Mexicans? All of the jobs? It's fascinating. First of all, a couple things. Number one, Labor Department data is very clear on this. African Americans are almost twice as likely as whites to be out of work, even when they have a college degree, and regardless of their major, by the way, almost twice as likely to be out of work. Latino folks, 50% more likely than whites to be out of work, even when they have a college degree. Asian Americans, 23% more likely to be out of work than white folks, even with a college degree. Our indigenous brothers and sisters, 2/3 more likely to be out of work than whites, even with a college degree. So I'm not sure where these black and brown folks are taking the jobs, but they ain't taking them far.
Mr. Weiss concluded his presentation by encouraging all in attendance to open their minds about the issues of race and inequality, and to keep fighting for a better America. At the conclusion of Weiss's talk, Alex, Isaac, and I went around interviewing TU students to gather their thoughts. Was there a particular argument that you found most compelling throughout the talk?
Yeah, I'd say some of his. I don't know if I'd call them. I would say they were compelling, but I'd say that probably the ones that I was most enlightened by were in his Q&A when he talked about how our culture is impacted by education and how it's not necessarily set up for everyone to achieve the best that they can be.
Did you hear anything today that challenged your worldview or encouraged you to think differently about a position that you had?
I'll have to reflect on it more, but I think he affirmed a lot of the things that I have, and it was really awesome to have someone who's a white male and he's privileged affirming the experiences that Black and brown people have and Asian Americans and many minorities in this country face.
Why do you find it particularly influential that it's coming from a white speaker as opposed to someone like a Black speaker or a person of color?
Well, people of color have been talking about these issues for a very long time, and sometimes it's worked, like in the civil rights movement, but there's always those times where we have to continue to push forward. It's honestly just historically not been enough to come from Black and brown and people of color. We've had to have those white allies step up in order to voice their concern and help us move forward as a collective whole.
Great. Thank you very much, Kyla.